Have you noticed yourself forgetting where you put your keys more often, or that an ordinary conversation suddenly feels harder to finish? Many of us chalk it up to tiredness or aging, but sometimes these harmless little signs may be pointing to something more serious. Today we'll go over 7 simple symptoms that are often the very first warning signs of dementia, and most importantly, we'll talk about what you can do about them. Let's begin with something that might seem small. Those moments when you walk into a room and forget why you're there, or you stand in front of your open fridge, unsure what you came for. That kind of forgetfulness can happen to anyone, from time to time, especially if we're tired or distracted. But when it starts happening regularly, several times a week or even daily, it can be a gentle warning sign from your brain that something deeper is going on. For many older adults, these memory slips aren't just about aging. They can be early signals of cognitive changes that deserve your attention. If this sounds familiar, I want you to know you're not alone, and there are small, helpful steps you can take. I still remember Mary, a retired librarian from Ohio, who came to see me when she was 72. She told me about forgetting why she drove to the grocery store, walking the aisles with an empty cart, trying to remember what she needed. "It's not that I can't remember names from long ago," she said. "It's the little things now, where I put the phone or what day it is." Her son had started noticing too, especially when she once left the stove on for hours after making tea. Another client, Dennis, 75, a former electrician from Kansas, used to be meticulous, but his wife noticed post-it notes multiplying all over the house, reminders for things he used to do automatically, like taking his pills or locking the front door. For both of them, the forgetfulness began quietly and gradually, but they took action early. Their doctors found mild cognitive impairment, but because it was caught soon, we were able to support them with simple habits and routines that made daily life more manageable. One of the easiest ways I recommend starting is by keeping a memory journal. Spend 5 minutes each morning or evening writing down 3 simple things: what you need to do that day, one thing that made you smile, and anything you want to remember tomorrow. It's a gentle way to stay present, and over time, it helps. Your brain forms stronger links between intention and memory. And here's something I truly believe. Memory is like a garden. It may need extra care as you get older, but that doesn't mean it can't bloom again. You don't have to fix everything at once. Even the smallest habit done with care can become a path to clarity. You're capable of more than you think, and every page you write is proof of that. Another sign that's easy to overlook is when words just won't come out the way they used to. You know exactly what you want to say, but the word is stuck on the tip of your tongue. Or you find yourself saying that thing or the stuff more often than before. That kind of language difficulty, especially if it's happening more often or making conversations frustrating, can be an early sign of changes in cognitive function. Our brain's language center becomes a little less efficient with age, and when mild memory decline begins, it often shows up in our speech first, not in forgetting facts, but in how smoothly we express them. This can be upsetting, especially if you're used to being quick with words or proud of how clearly you communicate. And it's important to know that it's not about losing intelligence. It's about helping the brain keep its language muscles strong. I had a patient, Frank, a retired high school teacher from Michigan, who was 76 when we first spoke. He told me about a dinner with his grandchildren when he wanted to explain a story from his younger days, but kept pausing, searching for simple words like chalkboard or principle. He said he felt embarrassed, even angry with himself, because teaching had been his whole life, and now it felt like his mind was tripping over itself. His daughter noticed it too, especially when he'd start a sentence and then just trail off. Another woman I worked with, Elaine, 71, from Florida, said she started talking less in her book club because she was afraid of sounding slow. These were smart, vibrant people, and they were losing confidence, not because their minds were gone, but because they needed just a bit of practice and support to keep their verbal flow active. Once we built small language habits into their day, their ease in conversations gradually returned. One of the simplest ways to keep your speech strong is by reading aloud. Just 10 minutes a day from any book you enjoy. It could be a mystery, novel, a poem, even the newspaper. Reading aloud works your language muscles like walking strengthens your legs. It wakes up the parts of your brain that connect thought with speech, and it does so gently without pressure. Language is how we share who we are. Even if the words come slower, your voice still matters deeply. You're not vanishing. You're learning new ways to stay connected. And that's something to be proud of every single day. Let's take a closer look at something that's easy to miss. When you start pulling away from things you used to love. Maybe gardening doesn't call to you like it used to, or knitting, music, puzzles, even simple walks start feeling like too much trouble. Many older adults chalk this up to low energy or changing routines, but when it happens suddenly or becomes more than just a passing phase, it could be an early sign of cognitive changes. The brain, especially when it's under strain, tends to shut down things that feel optional, and sadly, our hobbies are often the first to go. What many don't realize is that these activities actually keep the brain engaged, protect memory, and improve mood. So losing interest can quietly speed up decline unless we notice and respond with care. I remember Joan, 68, a soft-spoken woman from Georgia, who used to spend hours in her backyard garden. She'd grow tomatoes, herbs, even wildflowers just for the butterflies. But one spring, she barely planted a thing. Her husband, Mark, thought maybe she was just tired or needed a break. But weeks passed and the garden stayed empty. When I met her, she told me she didn't feel like herself, not sad exactly, just disconnected. Another client, Walter, 74, a retired jazz drummer from Detroit, told me he hadn't touched his drumsticks in 6 months. "I'm not sure why," he said. "I just stopped wanting to." For both of them, it wasn't depression, it was a quiet cognitive shift that left their passions feeling too far away to reach. Once we talked through it and made a gentle plan, we started small. Joan spent 10 minutes a day just sitting in her garden. Walter played along to his favorite old records for 5 minutes at a time. Slowly, the spark came back. What often helps in cases like these is returning to the hobby through tiny moments. Even looking through photo albums of past projects, flipping through an old recipe book, or watching a short video on the topic can wake up that familiar joy. 10 minutes is enough. You're not forcing anything, just reopening the door. Hobbies are not just pastimes, they're part of who you are. And like any part of yourself, they can be reawakened gently with patience and care. You don't have to go all in. You just have to begin again, and even the smallest moment of joy counts. Let me tell you about another subtle change that's worth paying attention to when keeping track of time starts to feel confusing. Maybe you're not sure what day it is, or you find yourself mixing up the order of events in the week, like thinking a doctor's appointment is tomorrow when it was actually yesterday. That kind of confusion happens to all of us once in a while, but when it becomes more frequent, when days blur together, or the time of day feels uncertain, it can be one of the first signs that your brain is having a harder time managing orientation. And I want you to know, it's not about being careless. It's about how the brain organizes time, and when that part of your thinking starts to shift, your world can quietly become disorienting. Recognizing it early gives you a chance to make simple changes that bring comfort and clarity back. I once worked with a man named Harold, 80, a retired postman from North Carolina. He had a strong routine, up at 6, coffee at 7, church every Sunday. But his daughter called me when she found him dressed for church on a Friday morning, standing by the door, looking puzzled. He told her he just felt like it was Sunday. The next week he missed a medication dose because he thought he'd already taken it. Another client, Ruth, 77, from Nevada, shared that she'd started missing her weekly bingo nights because she kept thinking it was Wednesday when it was actually Thursday. These weren't major memory losses, they were small moments that added up and caused stress. What made a difference in both cases was finding ways to re-anchor them in time without relying solely on memory. Harold's daughter set up a large, dry erase calendar in the kitchen and marked each day in bold. Ruth started using voice reminders that said, "It's Thursday, bingo night at 6. What helps most in situations like this is setting up strong visual and audio cues. A big wall calendar in a high-traffic area, with days clearly marked and checked off each morning, works better than you might think. Adding a gentle phone reminder with your own voice or a loved one's voice makes it even more reassuring. Time is how we move through life, and when it slips it can feel like we're floating. But with a few steady anchors you can feel grounded again. You're not drifting, you're finding your rhythm again, and it's still yours to keep. Here's another change I often hear about. When following a recipe, managing bills or planning simple tasks starts to feel overwhelming. It may begin with small things, like forgetting a step while cooking or feeling unsure if you've already added salt. Or maybe paying bills, balancing a checkbook, or even following a medication schedule takes longer and feels more confusing. These kinds of challenges are not just about memory. They often point to trouble with what we call executive function, which is the brain's way of organizing steps and keeping track of sequences. And when these skills slip, it can create anxiety and self-doubt, especially in people who were once very organized. But I want you to know, it's not your fault, and there are gentle, helpful ways to support your mind through it. I remember Barbara, 70, from Indiana. She was always a careful cook and loved preparing meals for her grandkids. One afternoon, she made her famous chicken soup, but by the time her daughter tasted it, it was inedible. Barbara had salted it 3 times and had no memory of doing so. She was so shaken she didn't want to cook again. Another man I worked with, Joe, 73, from Arizona, said he stopped paying the household bills after forgetting which ones he'd already paid and sending duplicate checks. His wife gently stepped in and asked me if there was anything that might help him feel more in control without taking everything away. In both cases, they weren't losing their intelligence. They were just struggling with steps, timing, and follow-through. Once we talked through some practical supports, they both felt more confident and less afraid of making mistakes. What often helps in situations like this is using checklists and timers. For cooking, write each step out clearly and cross them off as you go. Set a kitchen timer not only for cooking, but also for reminders, like when to add seasoning or when to turn off the stove. For bills, use a simple folder system or automatic payments for peace of mind. Your mind isn't broken, it's just asking for a little structure and support. Think of it like walking with a cane. It doesn't mean you can't walk, just that. You're giving yourself the balance to walk better, and you absolutely can. Let's talk about something that often gets brushed off. When you notice yourself becoming more irritable, more anxious, or just wanting to be alone more than usual. Some people assume it's just aging or being tired or having one of those days. But when those days become weeks or when others start pointing out that you're not quite yourself, it could be something more. Emotional changes, like mood swings, withdrawal, or sudden frustration, are often early signs that the brain is under stress. As cognitive function shifts, the part of the brain that helps regulate emotion can also be affected. And I want to be very clear, this doesn't mean you're becoming difficult or grumpy. It means your brain is asking for help, and you deserve to be listened to with kindness and care. I remember working with a man named Tom, 74, from Minnesota. He was a social guy, fishing trips with neighbors, weekly coffee with his bowling team. But his wife, Lynn, reached out to me after he turned down several invites in a row, stopped returning phone calls, and got noticeably snappy when she asked what was wrong. At first, she thought maybe he was mad at someone or having trouble sleeping. But then he admitted he'd been struggling to keep up with conversations, and it made him feel embarrassed. I lose track halfway through and just smile and nod, he told me. Another woman I met, Dolores, 69, from Oregon, said she'd started snapping at her daughter over small things, which wasn't like her at all. She later shared that trying to remember details, even simple things like names or TV shows, was exhausting. When we talked it through, both of them felt relief just having their feelings acknowledged. That was the first step to making things easier. What often helps in these moments is setting aside just 10 minutes a day for a calm, no-pressure conversation with someone you trust. It doesn't need to be deep. Even talking about the weather or a favorite memory keeps your social and emotional muscles active and reduces the tension that can build up when you feel isolated. You matter. Your voice still matters, even if the words come slower or your feelings are harder to explain. Think of it like a room that's been quiet for a while. It doesn't take much to bring warmth back in. A single conversation can do more than you realize. And here's one more change I often see that tends to sneak up quietly when simple daily decisions start to feel heavy. Things like choosing what to wear, what to eat, or whether to go out or stay in might once have been second nature. But if you're finding that even small choices feel overwhelming, or that you keep putting off decisions out of fear of getting them wrong, it could be an early sign that your brain's processing speed and confidence are starting to shift. This doesn't mean something is broken. It means your mind might be using more energy to make choices that used to feel automatic, and that can leave you feeling stuck, frustrated, or withdrawn. I remember Gloria, a 67-year-old woman from Ohio who came to see me after her daughter gently suggested it. She was always sharp, active in her church, and had a real flair for colorful outfits. But lately, she'd been wearing the same gray sweater and black pants every day, even to Sunday service. When I asked her about it, she paused and said quietly, "It's just easier. I don't want to mess it up." It wasn't about fashion, it was about decision fatigue. Another client, Larry, 72, from Colorado, used to cook meals with a lot of variety, but had recently been eating the same toast and scrambled eggs every day. When we spoke, he admitted he'd opened the fridge several times, then just closed it again, because he couldn't decide what to make. For both of them, this wasn't laziness or loss of interest. It was the mental load of choosing that had become too much. Once we broke things down and created some gentle structure, things slowly got easier again. What often helps in these cases is pre-deciding in a calm moment. One of the simplest ways is to prepare decision boxes, a set of ready-made outfit combinations for the week, or a printed weekly meal plan with groceries already in place. This removes pressure in the moment and gives your mind a rest without giving up your independence. You're not alone in this, and you're not failing. Even the strongest minds need support from time to time, and giving yourself structure isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of wisdom. You still have choices, and you still deserve to feel confident making them. If even one of these symptoms sounds familiar to you, please don't stay silent. Share this video with someone you love. Let us know in the comments which tip was most helpful to you. It means a lot to us and to other viewers as well. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and tap the bell. We're creating more heartfelt content made just for you. And remember, you are not alone, you're stronger than you think, and life continues as long as you hold it by the hand.